This is the greatest secret never told. Before I begin, you shouldn't blindly trust anything I share with you in this video. You shouldn't blindly believe me or anything I say. I believe that it's important that you question everything. Question your leaders, question your friends, your family, and your enemies, and find a truth inside of you that works for you. Because I believe that truth needs no convincing. It's not something that can be read. It's not something that can be heard. It's only something that can be felt. I'm going to perform a ritual right now called the Invocation of the 7 Directions. These are the 7 directions of spatial consciousness and the 7 fundamental archetypes of our own being. You can close your eyes or keep them open if you like. I will now perform the invocation of the 7 directions. To the wisdom keeper in the east, element of air, I will find the truth in the silence of my mind. To the warrior knight in the south, element of fire, I will create with my thoughts, words, and deeds. To the medicine healer in the west, element of water, I will express myself honestly, authentically, and transparently. To the temple priestess in the north, element of earth, I will give more than I receive and ask for what I want. To the mother below, queen of the moon and earth, I will forgive myself as I forgive others, and forgive others as I forgive myself. To the Father above, king of the sun and creator of the universe, I will trust in the unknown and have faith in the impossible. To the all, here and now, the center direction, I will love all as I love myself, and love myself as I love all. As above, so below, as within, so without, so be it, so it is. Amen. The greatest secret never told is not a religion. It's not a spiritual system. It's not a dogma. It's not a hierarchy, and it's not a law. It's an idea. It's a philosophy. It's a concept. And it's a software upgrade for our subconscious mind. The greatest secret never told can lead us along the path of freedom and liberation. It can lead to redemption, to salvation, and to grace. And for the persistent and courageous, it can lead to the promised land, paradise, or heaven on earth. In order for me to fully convey what I believe to be the greatest secret never told, I'm going to share some of my own story with you. I was born to very loving parents who had been badly traumatized in their life. They both experienced sexual trauma, physical abuse, emotional abuse, near-death experiences, and serious poverty in their early years. They passed that trauma on to me and my brother, unintentionally. By 7 years old, I knew what handguns and cocaine looked like. By 8 years old, my family, my brother and I had to go into hiding to run away from dangerous people that my parents owed money to. By the time I was 9 years old, my parents split up, and at 10 years old, I spent time in foster care. I eventually got to move in with my father, and by 12 years old, I was allowed to drink and have parties at my own apartment. Between 13 and 14, I was in and out of foster care, and by 15, I lived on my own. I finished high school, and a few years later, around the age of 22, I was homeless and jobless, sleeping on a friend's couch. That friend, caring about me, wanted my life to change, really believed in me, encouraged me to watch the movie The Secret. Now again, this secret is not that secret, although that secret did inspire me to start to realize exactly how powerful I am. Within a year of watching the movie The Secret the first time, I became a professional mixed martial arts fighter. At the time, I'd been training martial arts for 10 years, but I never came close to competing at a level of a professional. I imagined and visualized myself winning my first fight, and I did just that. I started my weight cut for the fight at 240 pounds. Looking at me now in this video, I weigh about 174, to put it in perspective. I won that fight, and in the 8 years to come, I would compete 21 times all over the country, sometimes for world championships, main event fights, and even on pay-per-view television. At the peak of my fight career, I experienced a devastating knockout. I was out for close to 2 minutes. I got up, I gave an interview to the ring announcer, I gave an interview outside of the cage, and then was wheeled out in a stretcher, and to this day, I don't remember any of it. I recognized that I could put my heart and soul into something like fighting and never see it come back to me. And I started to feel insecure, angry, and lonely in my life. My girlfriend at the time got tired of my continual controlling and abusive behavior and broke up with me. I couldn't understand why I would behave that way. I didn't want to be jealous. I didn't want to be controlling. I didn't want to be abusive, manipulative, and insecure, yet I couldn't help it for some reason. I was desperate to find answers. I went back to the movie The Secret and watched it again. Except this time I knew that something must be wrong. 500 million people watched the movie The Secret, yet so many people still suffered. So many people still struggled. What were they missing? What was I missing? I started researching the people in the movie The Secret. I started looking into their backgrounds and the philosophies and the ideas that they studied and carried with themselves. I started learning the things that they learned, things like quantum science, things like emotional freedom technique, meditation, hypnotism, and various aspects of behavioral psychology. I started seeing my own psychologists. I started seeing shamans. I started seeing healers. I became a Reiki master and kept digging and digging and digging. Finally, I took everything I learned and I applied it to opening a wellness center and writing a book on the subject of creating our own experience of reality. During the time that I owned this wellness center, a shaman came into my life. Now at the time, I'd only experienced very basic levels of shamanism, but this shaman was more powerful than I could have ever anticipated. He said, "I'm here to help you." And I said, "Help me with what?" He said, "I'm here to help you change the world." He led me through very powerful shamanic experiences, sometimes using plant medicines like dimethyltryptamine or psilocybin. He helped me recognize that I am a manifestation of the Creator, that I am a manifestation of God, and that I create my own experience of reality. Although I had researched and read lots of these ideas, to experience it in such a powerful ceremony was something I could never forget. Close to the end of owning my wellness center, another healer came into my life. He said he wanted to initiate me into an ancient esoteric practice, a sacred science, one that's not talked about in our modern society. I agreed. And between October of 2015 and March of 2016, I experienced more than a dozen extraordinarily powerful healing ceremonies. I was initiated into a world that I didn't even know existed, and my life began to change dramatically. In May of 2016, I decided to travel to Cusco, Peru, and experience my first shamanic ayahuasca ceremonies. I worked with a retreat center called Etnica's Integrative Healing Clinic. Now, I don't suggest that people go anywhere and experience ayahuasca with just anyone. Etnica's, however, is a group of very powerful, very loving, and compassionate healers. During my first ceremony, Mother Ayahuasca gave me a message I'll never forget. She said, in order to heal yourself, you have to nurture the roots. In the second ceremony, I became the creator. I watched myself evolve from the plant and mineral kingdom all the way up to primates and humans and reptilians and even further and beyond, higher dimensional beings. Suddenly, angels were all around me. They put their hands on my chest and they said, you have to learn to heal yourself if you want to walk amongst the angels. When I got home from Peru, around the same time, I was initiated into a form of coaching using an oral tradition of simply asking questions, connecting to our higher self, and reflecting information back to our clients. This coaching was not like any coaching that I'd experienced before. It wasn't life coaching. It wasn't business coaching. It was a type of coaching that cannot be explained by words. It's only something that can be experienced. My experiences in Peru were so powerful, I decided to go back in October of 2016 and bring a team with me. I brought a team of clients and coaches to experience ayahuasca yet again. In my fourth and fifth ayahuasca ceremonies, I experienced tremendous transformations, far more than my first time in Peru. In my fifth ayahuasca ceremony, I asked the shamans to give me enough ayahuasca so I never have to do ayahuasca ever again. Most people in the ceremony got about this much. I got about this much. As soon as I drank it, I could feel that this experience was going to be like something I never experienced before. I immediately disappeared. I was no longer Ricky Goodall. I didn't have a body. I wasn't aware of the room that I was in. I wasn't aware that there were people around me. I was in total infinite blackness. I thought I'd died and gone to hell. Where is this? Where am I? No response. Total blackness. Total nothingness. What is this? Where am I? I was terrified. I was sobbing and weeping. Where is this? What am I? Where am I? No response. Finally, a feminine voice out of nowhere says, what's wrong? I knew it immediately to be Mother Ayahuasca, the spirit of the ayahuasca plant. She said, what's wrong? I said, what is this? Where am I? With humor in her voice, she says, what's wrong? I thought you wanted to know what it's like to be the creator. I thought you wanted to know what it's like to be God. She said, don't you recognize at this level of your consciousness, at this level of what you are, you're all there is. There's nothing for you to experience here. There's no one for you to be in relationship with. There's nothing for you to experience outside of your own awareness. She said, don't you recognize this life you've created as Ricky Goodall is the vacation you've given yourself to get away from being all that is, all that ever was, and all that ever will be. So don't you recognize all the suffering you ever experienced in your life is nothing compared to the suffering you experience being alone forever? So don't you recognize the ancient people never bow down out of fear of their creator, they bow down out of compassion. Thank you for this life. Thank you for this gift of duality, of separation, of suffering. Thank you, thank you, thank you. So don't you recognize all the suffering in the world, from the starving children to the murder to all of the rest is nothing compared to the infinite loneliness our Creator experiences. Next, she started showing me ancient sacred geographical symbols, like the six-sided star, commonly known as the Star of David, the Seal of Solomon, or the hexagram. She said, you have to study this symbol. You have to study it and you'll understand the ancient esoteric wisdoms in the world. You have to study the Hebrew mysticism, Egyptian mysticism, and all the other forms of mysticism. You have to study shamanism. You have to visit the ancient sacred sites in the world. She said you have to study the Hebrew prophecy. It will help you recognize who you are and what your purpose is in this world. Next, suddenly a king and queen were right in front of me in big thrones sitting right there, and my head felt like it was going to explode. I said, whoa, what is this? Where am I? They said, it makes sense that it hurts right now. You're not ready to be here yet. Suddenly I knew I was in heaven. They, along with Mother Ayahuasca, said, you're going to start a religion. It's going to change the world. You're going to bring ayahuasca to Canada, and you're going to share the sacred medicine with others. I did create that religion. That religion is called Unism, Y-O-U-N-I-S-M. And there's just one law in Unism, and it's that you are the creator. You are the higher self. You are the chosen one. I left Etnikas and connected with an author named Brian Forster. Brian Forster has written 22 books on the subject of ancient human technology. He studies ancient sites like the pyramids of Giza, Machu Picchu, Sacsayhuaman, and Göbekli Tepe in Turkey. He says that these sites are built with technology that we can't even comprehend today. Just one block at Sacsayhuaman in Peru is 125 tons, with blocks around and above it fitting perfectly with no mortar. How did they build it? How did the ancient people get a 125-ton rock from a rock quarry 45 kilometers away up a mountain to build a temple? There were no straight trees at the time. There's no way they could have rolled it. How did they get it there? Researchers have no idea. Brian told me that the Great Pyramid of Giza has 2.3 million blocks. Each block is cut perfectly, like a jigsaw puzzle piece, to click into the blocks above, below, and around it, all uniquely, without mortar. Imagine 2.3 million blocks cut perfectly to click in to all the blocks around them. These blocks, some of them almost as hard as diamond. What's more, the pyramid is lined up to true north within a fraction of a degree, and the blocks are level within a fraction of an inch. This is technology we can't even come close to explaining today. There's more structure beneath the pyramids of Giza than there is above it. Structure we haven't even discovered yet. Entire underground cities below the pyramids of Giza, completely undiscovered. Who built them? Why were they there? I asked Brian these questions, and he said, there's no way we could know. There was a flood 11,500 years ago on or about that completely wiped out our civilization as we know it. He calls it the Great Flood. This flood completely wiped out the world, and the majority of our population at the time was annihilated. The wise wisdom keepers hid in the mountains and in the underground cities, like the pyramids of Giza perhaps. They hid from the flood, and kept the ancient wisdom with them and passed it on through oral tradition once the flood subsided. I said, Brian, how is this possible? How do we not know this? He explained another theory to me, something called the Great Year. And there's a theory that consciousness goes through a 24,000 year cycle where it goes to very high consciousness where we become incredibly enlightened beings to a very low consciousness where we become almost like animals. The theory is that we're moving out of that time of lower consciousness. On or about December 21st, 2012, we shifted into a new age, some call the Age of Aquarius, where we're moving back up toward the higher realms of consciousness. And for the last 2,000 to 6,000 years, we've been in the darkest time of human history. It makes sense when you look at the world we're living in today. It makes sense when you look at the dogmatic, patriarchal systems that are running our world. It makes sense when you think about situations in history like the Library of Alexandria with 700,000 scrolls and books about ancient esoteric wisdom burned to the ground by angry religious mobsters. It makes sense when you think about all of the harmless, innocent healers and medicine people and the indigenous people who have been murdered all across our planet in an attempt to continue to suppress this wisdom. We've been living in some dark, dark, dark times. When I came home from Peru in October of 2016 until August of 2018, I went through my own spiritual pilgrimage. I experienced more than 300 plant medicine ceremonies using medicines like cannabis, dimethyltryptamine, San Pedro, and psilocybin mushrooms. I experienced hundreds of hours of coaching sessions. That's an exaggeration, over 100 hours of coaching sessions. I read dozens of books on esoteric wisdom, healing, behavioral psychology, and more. I went deep into my own consciousness, deep into my own psychology. I had to understand myself. During that time, I uprooted so many traumas I hadn't even remembered happening. Traumas from my childhood that devastated me and created all that behavior I hated about myself. I learned that my jealous, controlling, insecure, and manipulative behaviors were rooted in these childhood experiences, these unhealed traumas that lie dormant inside of my subconscious mind. I went through vicious purging, crying, vomiting in some cases, diarrhea, sweating, and so much more. I faced every fear that I could find. I confessed every sin I ever committed. Sins like adultery, having affairs with married women, lying, cheating, stealing, selling drugs, and much more. I confessed all my sins to another human being, at least one, and in some cases many. I faced as much of my pain as I could and purged it out of my body. I learned that this pain was responsible for all the behavioral traits about myself that I hated, that I despised, that brought me pain, all the ways I behaved that I knew weren't aligned with my higher self. And I started to heal. And as I healed, my behavior changed. I created a deep and direct connection with God, with higher self, with the Creator. I started to be able to communicate and receive insights and guidance for where to go next and where to look next for the next clues, the next breadcrumbs that could help me understand myself and this world I live in. I studied concepts and systems like Kabbalah, alchemy, the Tree of Life, the Hebrew alphabet, the Tarot. I read books like the Kybalion. I studied alchemy. I already said alchemy. I studied shamanism and the idea of living in the flow. And throughout all of this process, I discovered what I call the greatest secret never told, and what I'll share with you very soon. In August of 28, I traveled back to Peru again to experience my 6th and my 7th ayahuasca ceremonies. And in that time, Mother Ayahuasca showed me yet again the 6-pointed star. And she told me it's time to surrender into what I am. She says, Ricky, you must surrender into what you are. The world needs you. Your family needs you. Your friends need you. You need to heal yourself. It's time to surrender into what you are. And the 6-sided star, the 6-pointed star would show up everywhere as she was speaking to me. The next day I told the shaman of my experiences and he said, yes, Mother Ayahuasca told me to tell you that you are a master, you are a shaman, you are a doctor, you are a healer. And it's time to step into this purpose and to live this purpose. Before I share what I believe to be the greatest secret never told, I'd like you to ponder some questions. What if we are not really who we think we are? What if I'm not really Ricky Goodall? What if you're not really the identity that you claim to be? What if this is just your character? What if this is an identity based on the experiences you had in your younger years? What if this is a character created based on your beliefs, your opinions, and your perspectives that were handed to you and that you received from the world around you? Throughout my research, I discovered that up to 75% of our core beliefs are formed in the first 12 years of our lives. Think about that. Up to 75% of our core beliefs formed in the first 12 years of our lives. That means our beliefs about relationships, health, happiness, and finances formed in our childhood as a result of the relationships we have with our parents, our grandparents, our teachers, our siblings, and the other influential people around us. I don't know about you, but the influential people around me, for the most part, were drug addicts, drug dealers, alcoholics, criminals, and other people who are suffering from their own traumas. Now, the scary part is between 40 and 95% of our decisions every day are based on these core beliefs. Our decisions as adults are based on these core beliefs. If we don't change them, if we don't reprogram them, if we don't recognize exactly who we are, these beliefs remain locked inside of our subconscious mind. Our childhood programming is responsible for the decisions we make in our adult life that causes us and others pain. Our childhood programming is responsible for the traumas we experience as adults, for the pain, for the regret, for the guilt and the shame that we experience in our growing years. The intergenerational trauma we experience as children that passed on from our parents, our grandparents, our great-grandparents is the same trauma we pass on to our children if we don't heal it. What if we are not who we think we are? What if the character we identify as is actually just a result of our pain and our pleasure as children? What if we're something more? What if we're far older than we realize? What if these ancient sites in our world are evidence that we are far older as a society than we've been led to believe? What if we are tens of thousands of years old? What if our society, what if our civilization, what if our people have survived far darker ages than we're aware of? What if there was a great flood 12,000 years ago that wiped out our planet almost completely? What if the ancient wisdoms that existed before the flood have only been passed on through oral tradition, like those that I've experienced? What if there is a 24,000 year cycle of consciousness? And what if we are coming out of the dark ages? What if we are coming out of a so-called hell on earth? What if the ancient wisdom has been suppressed by the major spiritual systems in our world? What if the mobsters who burned the Library of Alexandria have also been responsible for the witch burnings and the murders of the indigenous healers and medicine people all across our planet? What if there has been an ancient wisdom suppressed for thousands of years, only finally surfacing now as the ages have changed? What if on or around December 21st, 2012, we did move into a higher age of consciousness? What if we are not living in a physical world? What if this world is some kind of holographic matrix? What if reality really is physical and non-physical at the same time? What if experiments like the Copenhagen interpretation and the double slit experiment help us understand that reality only exists when we're observing it? What if the work by Dr. J.B. Ryan, when a man walked into his office and said, "I can control the roll of the dice with my mind," helped us understand that our intention also creates our reality? What if concepts like subjective reality versus objective reality, proposed by Steve Pavlina, help us understand that we're all living in our own dream? What if I'm just a reflection of your consciousness? What if this is your dream? What if this is your universe? What if I'm just a reflection of you, here to remind you of that? As the ancient alchemist said, "As within, so without." The world inside projects and reflects into the world around us. And we are all gods of our own creation, gods of our own experience of reality. What if we are living in some kind of simulation? As Elon Musk, founder of Tesla, PayPal, and SpaceX once said, there's a 1 in a billion chances we're not living in a simulation. As Jim Carrey said, not exactly, but we're all characters pretending to be who we really are, but we're something so much more beneath that. What if we're living in some kind of video game, some kind of simulation created to help our consciousness evolve? What if we're all characters in our own individual video game? What if I'm just a character in your video game, here to help you wake up? What if this body and this character is your bio supercomputer that you absorb beliefs and absorb experiences and then project them into the world around you? What if the world around you is just a reflection of your bio supercomputer? What if you are not really the character you think you are, but what if you are something deeper? In science, we refer to as when we're living in the flow or living in the zone, we can connect to our innate intelligence or our non-local mind. In the spiritual world, we call this our God self, our Christ self, our Buddha self, our Atman self, our Krishna self. What if that's who we really are? What if we are not these characters we're playing? What if we are the chosen one? Mother Ayahuasca and God in many of my shamanic ceremonies told me something else. God told me that I am the chosen one. I am the Messiah, the Moshiach, and that it's my job to awaken the world and help them recognize that they too are the chosen ones. They too are the Messiahs, the Moshiachs of their own reality. That means you are the Christ. You are the Krishna. You are the Buddha. You are the chosen one, and it's time to wake up to how powerful you really are. It's time to wake up to your true reality, your true nature. It's time to recognize that you are capable of miracles. You are capable of magic beyond your wildest dreams. Look at people like Donovan Bailey, who became the fastest man alive just through using his mind and his persistence. Dr. Joe Dispenza, I'm pretty sure he's a doctor, Dr. Joe Dispenza, who was able to heal his back through the power of his mind, a broken back he experienced in a cycling accident. What about Bruce Lee, who was able to train his body in such a way that he could perform true miracles? What if these other miracle workers in history like Jesus, Buddha, or Moses, who were able to create magnificent miracles that have been talked about for thousands of years? What if we are all that authentic self? What if we are all that higher self? What if we are all the Christ, the Krishna, the Buddha, the Atman, the authentic self inside? I believe that you are the chosen one. I believe that you are here to transform the world in your own unique way. I believe that you have a purpose so powerful, it could change our world for many, many, many years to come. This is the greatest secret never told. This is the greatest truth we all must understand. We are not the characters we're playing. We are not the identities we identify with. We are so much more. We are the self. We are the Christ. We are the Buddha. We are the Krishna. We are the higher self pretending to be just human, as a vacation away from our own infinite nature. In my next video, I'll be sharing research, including books like these I have with me here, to help us understand the true identity of the character we call Jesus Christ. In that video, I'll be sharing my own stories and my own findings that helped me understand who Jesus Christ really is and really was. If you'd like to join my tribe, my online community of heretics, misfits, rebels, and oddballs who recognize and realize and accept that they are also the chosen one, you can find a link in the description below. This is the greatest secret never told. You are not the character you identify with. At least I don't believe that to be so. I believe that you are the Christ. You are the Buddha. You are the Krishna. You are the chosen one. Thank you for watching. I'll see you in the next video.